Today I'm going to share my tips with you on reviewing multiple offers as a home seller. Hi, I'm Becca Summers with Seasons Real Estate, and today we're talking about how to review multiple offers with pros and cons besides just the purchase price, because there's a whole lot more that goes into it. If you're new here, make sure you like and subscribe so you can learn everything real estate and Utah. So we are in a very competitive seller's market, meaning sellers are getting multiple offers. So getting offers on the house is not really the hard part of the job right now. The hard part of the job is reviewing to make sure that they are qualified and able, ready, and willing buyers. The first thing I like to do is analyze all the offers. So what I do is I put them all in a spreadsheet. I'll have the purchase price, if there's any closing costs, what type of loan it is, if they're asking for repairs, if they're asking for a home warranty, how much they're putting down, how much they're putting towards earnest money, who their agent is, if it's contingent on anything, and any additional terms, because all of those things make a big difference. Now, a lot of people might be surprised that who their agent is matters, but because we're in a very competitive situation and everyone needs to be able to communicate and work well together. If you are working with an agent who has a bad reputation in the industry or even no reputation in the industry, it's a lot harder to work with that agent. So if I'm comparing apples to apples, we might pick an agent who has a little bit more of a work history that we can track and prove that they're going to be okay. Another thing I look at is I actually look at how often they get closing costs or concessions, meaning are they going to be a pain in the butt during due diligence and inspections? Because that matters when I'm talking about my sellers. So how I do that is I go look up their past history, I see what the house was listed for, what it sold for, and what concessions they got. Because they represented the buyer, so all of those negotiations are what the buyer's agent did. So fantastic news for a buyer if their agent gets a house less and less price and gets a ton of closing costs. Not so fantastic for my seller. So that's something that we'll weigh. The next thing we'll look at is who the lender is, and I'll actually call the lender and verify a ton of information because loans are a little trickier right now and there's a bunch of extra overlays. So I like to have a good conversation with the lender. The main questions I like to ask is, are they shopping at the max of their debt to income ratio, which is also often called a DTI? Because debt to income, if they're shopping at the max and interest rates change, they're not gonna be able to afford the house anymore. And interest rates are super low. We're at a 50-year low right now. So if the buyer is shopping the max of their debt to income ratio and interest rates go up 0.25%, they no longer can afford the house. And that's an important thing to know when I'm reviewing all of the offers. Because the goal is not necessarily just to get under contract, it's to get closed and get my seller to the next point in their life. So I want to make sure they're not shopping there. The next one is job stability. With everything going on, people getting laid off, people getting sick, I want to make sure that we're not working with a buyer who might lose their job halfway through the transaction. Now, this is not a guarantee, but if I can verify somewhat what job history they're in or what job field they're in, that's awesome. The next thing I like to ask is, have they verified all their documents? Have they seen their pay stubs? Have they seen their bank account? Have they made sure that this buyer is qualified and ready to go? Because sometimes lenders and loan officers will have a 5-second conversation with someone and send out an approval letter without verifying any of this information. And knowing all of this up front before we select an offer makes a big difference on the whole transaction in terms of how smooth the transaction can be. And when I say transaction, it's a lot more than just a transaction. It's you taking the time, selling your house, packing up your family, and moving to a new place. So all of that is super important to make sure that it's not stressful for you, because unfortunately, buying and selling real estate is number 3 on the list of stresses after death and divorce. And sometimes death and divorce cause you to have to sell, which makes it even harder. So I try to be as aware of that as possible and help guide people through this with as little hiccups as possible. So that's why we take all this time up front reviewing offers, because as a homeowner and as a seller, it's a whole lot harder to get out of contract after you've already accepted an offer, because how the Utah purchase contract is written is very buyer friendly for the buyer to have time and to feel comfortable with their purchase. But as a homeowner, it really ties you up and ties you to that buyer up to 21 days with no repercussions whatsoever if the buyer cancels. And when it comes to repackaging and remarketing your house after you've had a buyer cancel, it's always just a little bit harder. So say we got multiple offers the first time, we chose an offer that wasn't the best buyer based off of a couple things. and they cancel on you, if we end up having to relist your house and resell it, it's not impossible, but it is always a little bit harder. So those are a few things that I do when I'm evaluating offers to make sure that my sellers are getting the best buyer possible. In today's market, it's not really hard to find a buyer. It's hard to find a good buyer that's gonna close on your property. So hiring a professional to guide you through this whole process and do all of this extra nitty-gritty work that you don't really need to know how it happens is worth its weight in gold. If you're looking to sell your home and you would like guidance on how to evaluate offers and how to market your house and how to go contract to close, reach out. I help home sellers all the time.